Hi everybody, it's Jordy from Jordy's Cards here for Heffy Doodle today, and I'm so excited to be creating this fun summary shaker card featuring the gorgeous Flock Star stamp set from Heffy Doodle. So here is that stamp set. I also have the coordinating dies for these. These are just so fun and summery, and yeah, think pink for definite. Next up, I have this stencil, which is the Ripple Wave stencil from Heffy Doodle. This is gorgeous for creating a watery scene. I have the Moxie alphabet dies, and I also have the Scalloped Imperial Frame dies. This is what I'm going to use to create my shaker today. I also have the Heffy Doodle Build a Pond dies. I'm using that smaller pond shape for my card today. So this card kind of came about because I had already created this panel here using that Ripple Wave stencil and some cracked pistachio Distress Oxide ink. And it was sitting on my desk and I was wondering what to do with it, and I decided to create this card with it today. So I've gone ahead and coloured and cut out my little flamingos and their little boom box there. We're going back to the 80s with this one. And here is that piece from the Build a Pond die. It's that smaller kind of pond piece. And I'm just popping that down on my make art station, and I'm going to turn this into a sandy island. So I have some Distress Oxide ink in antique linen here. I'm going all over that piece with that antique linen Distress Oxide. Then I'm going to pull out the Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink and just add a little bit of darkness to the bottom edges of this. Once that is done, we're going to do some splattering because I love a bit of splattering. So I'm just laying a bit of that down onto my mat, squirting it with some water, picking it up with a paintbrush, and I'm going to splatter that all over to create that kind of sandy textured look that you would get from sand, of course. Once that is done, I'm going to pull out some white acrylic paint. This is just a cheap acrylic paint that I got at my local bookshop. And I'm going to water that down with a little bit of water as well, trying not to get my paint everywhere. And then I'm going to splatter that all over too. I think the look of white and dark splatters really makes the sand look like sand. So once I've done all the splattering, I'm going to pop this piece aside to dry while I work on my other parts. So here's that Scalloped Imperial Frames die. I've cut the largest one from some white Heffy Doodle cardstock, and then I've just attached some Heffy Doodle extra thick acetate to the back of it for my shaker window. Next up, I have the Heffy Doodle foam strips. I cannot live without these. They are perfect for making shaker cards, and I'm using these all the way around the edge of my frame die here. So the great thing about these foam strips is that they are 3 millimeters high, which is the perfect height for a shaker card. You don't need to add any extra height. With some foams, you need to double them up to get the right height for a shaker. With this, it's just already done for you, so you don't need to worry about it. So I'm making sure that I've got all the edges covered with that and there's no kind of gaps in the corners. Once that's done, I'm going to use my powder tool here to add some powder just around the edge of those that foam tape so that any stickiness is removed, along with it going over the background piece. I live in a very hot country, so things get a bit staticky, so I like to do this just to make sure that my shaker pieces move around a little bit. Here I have my shaker pieces. This is the Tickled Pink Sequin Mix from Heffy Doodle. It is perfect for these lovely flamingos, beautiful pinks, bright pinks, lighter pinks, some white and some kind of iridescent ones in there. So it just works perfectly for flamingos. It's great. Once I've added my shaker mix in there, I'm going to peel off my liner tape, which is always easier said than done, isn't it? And once I have done that, I will stick my ink blended panel down on top of this to create my shaker card. I love a shaker card. I think they're so much fun. They're relatively easy to create. They don't take too much effort, and they pack a big punch, don't they? I think when people get a shaker card for their birthday or for any other occasion, actually, it's a bit of a wow factor, isn't it? So once that tape is, or the backing paper is removed, I can go ahead and try and stick down my background piece. I was getting sequins everywhere. They were sticking to everything, sticking to my fingers, sticking to the tape. Yeah, I was having fun with this one. So here's that background panel, and again, see, just sticking really clumsy. I am a pretty clumsy person, so yeah, me and sticky tape probably don't go very well together. But here I finally managed to get that background piece on. I'm going to seal it down and give it a shake because it's so much fun. And doesn't that look pretty? I love that cracked pistachio colour with those bright pinks. So I have gone ahead and stamped a little bit of the sentiment onto that sandy panel there, which says Party Liker. And then I have cut the rest of my sentiment from the Moxie alphabet die set, which says Flock Star. Now, obviously, this is the same sentiment as what is in the stamp set, but I just wanted to use that alphabet die to create the main part of my sentiment because I thought it was lots of fun, and also because I could color it then the same way that I have colored my flamingos. So I've used the same pink Copic markers that I've used for my flamingos to create a bit of a gradient effect on those letters, and now I'm gluing them down with some liquid glue and trying to space these out carefully. I'm using the very bottom of that frame die to help me line everything up straight, and then kind of squeezing everything in. It was a bit of a tight fit. It literally just fit in along the bottom of this card panel, but I think it looks really, really cool. I love the look of those letters with that kind of gradient effect of them from the Copic markers. I think that's such a cool look. And I often do this with my alphabet dies because I just think it's really fun. And also just because it's a great way of tying the colors into the colors that you've used on the rest of your card. I think it's awesome. So once that is done, I'm just kind of cleaning up, trying to make sure that I don't get glue all over the place because it can make a bit of a mess on the acetate. So you do have to be a little bit careful when using the liquid glue. But once I've got all of those in place, I can shake it around again because you can't resist shaking a shaker. And I'm just going to pop an acrylic block on there to hold it down while it dries. Once that is done, I can start assembling the rest of my card. I'm using some tape runner now because I find tape runner a lot easier on acetate. It doesn't make so much of a mess, and I can just kind of be a bit more accurate with where I put it. So I'm going to line this up and try and center it down fairly well. Again, it literally just fits inside that frame, so it's perfect sizing for it. And once I'm happy with the placement of that little island, I can pop everything else down. So here's my little 80s boom box, which I'm going to pop just above that sentiment. And then my two little flamingos who are going to be dancing around to the music on either side of that boom box on their little island in the middle of the sea. It kind of looks like a nice place to be, doesn't it? Maybe with a few cocktails or something, maybe an umbrella to shade you from the sun a little bit as well. Be nice. So once I've got those stuck down, I decided it just needed something a little bit extra, and in the stamp set there are some little music notes which I went ahead and stamped and die cut out, and now I'm just going to pop them around in various places so it looks like the music from that boombox is coming out, or the stereo, or I can't remember what did we call it in the 80s? You have to tell me in the comments below. Can't think of what it was called. Yeah, gone completely out of my head. My brothers had one of these and they had a name for it and I can't remember what it was. Completely gone. But anyway, we're going back to the 80s. I love it. So to finish off, I have this gorgeous piece of raspberry cardstock from Heffy Doodle. It's a gorgeous bright pink. I've actually just used the inside piece of that frame die that I cut earlier to use as a place to write my sentiment on the inside of my card. I'm gluing that down, and I have just stamped down a couple of flowers from the sentiment stamp set even in each corner there. And I will just glue my shaker panel down onto that card base, and that is it, my card complete. I love how this turned out. It's so bright and colourful and fun, and of course love to shake it around. I love the noise it makes when it shakes. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to the Heffy Doodle channel, and please check out these other videos that you might enjoy. Thank you for joining me today.